Hey, I'm Claire, and this is the story of how my sister's picture perfect world shattered because she made the mistake of thinking I would always stay silent. You know how families have the favorite? The one who's practically canonized at the dinner table while everyone else fades into wallpaper? In my family, Jessica didn't just wear that crown. She was the crown. The straight A student, the prom queen, the corporate darling. Every cliche rolled into one painfully perfect package. And me? I was the footnote, the she's still figuring it out sibling. But this story isn't just about sibling rivalry. It's about what happens when the scales tip, when being overlooked becomes intolerable, when the lies pile too high, and when someone like me, quiet, careful, invisible, finally stops playing by the family's rules. It started on a Sunday. Those were family dinner nights, where our parents performed their weekly ritual of worshiping Jessica's latest achievement. This week, it was the company promotion she was basically guaranteed. She hadn't even gotten the title yet, but the family already talked about it like she'd won the presidency. You know, Dad said between bites of his ribeye, Jessica's new position could lead to a regional directorship, and she's not even 30 yet. Isn't that incredible, Claire? I nodded, smiled, took a sip of wine to drown the words I wanted to scream. Incredible, I said. Jessica smirked, twisting her glass in her hand like she was bored of the praise. It's just a lateral step, nothing to celebrate yet. Oh, honey, don't downplay it, Mom said, eyes bright with pride. You've earned this. You always have. That was the cue for me to fade away. I reached for the bread basket and let the noise drown me. But then Jessica looked at me. Really looked. And how's your job going, Claire? Still, data input, right? That wasn't what I did. It had never been what I did. But to her, my life was a hazy blur, one she didn't care to focus on. I'm working on a new campaign rollout, I said. It's actually— That's cute, she interrupted, then turned back to Dad. Anyway, my boss said I'm exactly what the company needs long-term. Stability, strategy, leadership. I swallowed the rest of my wine. Hard. Later that night, as I helped Mom clear the table, I overheard them talking in the living room. They were planning Jessica's promotion party, a catered event, black tie. Jessica wanted it classy, she said. No drama. Then she said something that stopped me cold. I don't want Claire there. She'd just bring the energy down. The knife in my hand didn't slip, but I wish it had. It's a strange thing, the moment when love erodes into resentment. You don't feel it all at once. It happens in layers. Tiny betrayals that stack themselves like bricks until the wall is too high to climb back over. I didn't cry that night. I didn't rage. I just sat on the porch, wrapped in silence, watching the stars like they might offer answers. I wasn't angry that Jessica didn't want me there. I was angry that no one questioned it. No one said, "That's cruel." No one said, "That's your sister." And that's when I realized I wasn't just the black sheep. I was disposable. From that night on, something shifted. The girl who kept the peace, she was gone. Now I had a plan. And it started with learning everything about Jessica's oh-so-perfect career. Ever been at a table where everyone's full but you're still starving? Stick around. This story's just getting started. The days that followed were filled with a quiet that wasn't peace. It was pressure. It pressed against my ribs, sharp and persistent, like holding my breath in a room where no one realized I was suffocating. I didn't confront Jessica. Not yet. There's a certain art to vengeance, and the first rule is simple. You don't swing while you're still bleeding. Instead, I watched. I listened. Jessica, in all her self-assured glory, paraded through the week like a queen in a town that forgot what democracy meant. She hosted a casual dinner at her place. Family, close friends, colleagues. I wasn't invited, obviously. But my parents came back beaming, raving about her apartment, her wine selection, how elegant she was when giving a toast. She talked about the values of leadership, Claire, Mom said. completely unaware of the irony. You could learn a thing or two. I bet, I muttered. But it wasn't just family praise that started to chip away at me. It was the realization of how deep the bias ran. A few days later, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off some mail that had accidentally been sent there. I wasn't planning to stay, but I caught the end of a phone call Dad was on. Speakerphone in the living room. No, she won't be at the event, he was saying. Jessica thought it might be distracting. You know how Claire is, emotional. I froze in the hallway. She means well, Dad added with a chuckle, but she doesn't always fit in with Jessica's crowd. Distracting, emotional. Did they ever hear themselves? I stepped into the living room like a ghost returning to the scene of her own funeral. Interesting, I said. Didn't realize my presence was that disruptive. Dad turned, startled. Claire, hey, we weren't talking about you in a bad way. No, I said. You were talking about me in the usual way. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Don't worry, I added. I wouldn't want to embarrass Jessica. I'll stay far away, like always. I left before anyone could respond, driving until the city lights blurred into something meaningless. There was no explosive rage, no screaming match, no melodrama, just a sudden, irreversible erosion of something that used to hold me together. And in that silence, something inside me clicked. Jessica wasn't just afraid I'd bring the energy down. She was terrified I'd steal focus. Not because I outshined her, but because deep down she knew I could. She built her kingdom on the backs of people she made feel small. I was done being her brick. That night, I opened a blank document on my laptop. Not to journal, not to vent. I started building a map, a career timeline of Jessica's last 2 years at her firm. Dates, project names, teams. I scoured LinkedIn, company newsletters, even her smug posts on social media. I cross-referenced everything I could. Public business filings, client announcements, press releases, and in that pile of curated perfection, I found the first crack. A campaign she had taken full credit for. The timeline didn't match. She hadn't even been in the country during the first pitch meeting. Yet, there she was in the press release, named as the architect of the campaign strategy. It was small, but it was something. I needed more. I created a burner email, reached out to one of the junior associates listed on the project, claimed to be a journalist working on a story about rising stars in corporate America. Can you share a bit about what the team dynamic was like? I wrote. Who really led the campaign from start to finish? The reply came fast. Oh, that was mostly Marisa V. She was the brains. But Jessica pulled the strings to take over the spotlight at the end. Office politics, you know how it goes. I smiled. Yes. Yes, I did. The next day, I met up with Rachel, my best friend, and the one person who saw the storm behind my stillness. I thought you were done with your family's drama, she said, sipping her coffee. I was, I replied, until it got personal. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Hasn't it always been personal? I didn't answer. Instead, I slid my laptop over, showing her the timeline and messages. She whistled low. Damn, you're really doing this? She started it. I'm just finishing what she doesn't realize she began. You know this isn't just revenge, Rachel said. This is war. No, I said, my voice steady. This is clarity. By the time the weekend rolled in, I had enough to raise questions, but not enough to end her. Not yet. She wanted a promotion party without me? Fine. I'd give her a celebration she'd never forget. The first time I heard her voice again after that dinner, it came through voicemail. Hey, Claire. So, I guess you know about the promotion event. It's kind of a formal thing. Corporate's sending press. There's just limited seating. And I thought maybe it would be better if… Anyway, no hard feelings, okay? Just trying to keep things streamlined. Streamlined. Not family, not personal. Streamlined. I didn't call her back. By that point, I'd built a dossier on my sister that would make a lawyer twitch. From falsified project credits to bypassed compliance protocols, I had more than just office gossip. I had emails, source logs, even screenshots of her tweaking timelines in collaborative docs to appear like she'd led meetings she hadn't even attended. But I wasn't reckless. I knew exposing Jessica wasn't just about lighting a match. It was about aiming the fire. I started with someone who hated her guts. His name was Ethan, a former coworker. We'd met once years ago at one of Jessica's company parties. He was the guy in the corner making sarcastic asides under his breath, while everyone else played the polished networking game. I found him on LinkedIn, messaged him under my real name. He replied an hour later. "Claire, you're Jessica's sister?" "Huh, didn't know she had one." There it was, the first cut. "She tends to forget," I wrote. "You said once she stole credit for a project of yours. Was that just bitterness, or do you have receipts?" The typing bubble danced for a full minute. "I have receipts," he finally wrote. "Plenty. Why?" "Because she's getting promoted, and I think we both know she shouldn't be." We met at a small coffee shop far from downtown. Neutral territory, a place where no one wore suits, and no one pretended to be better than anyone else. Ethan was sharper than I remembered. Quiet confidence, eyes that missed nothing. He slid a USB drive across the table with a dry smile. "She used people like stairs," he said. "Climbed them, then stepped off without looking back." I always wondered when someone would push back. "What did she do to you?" He took a sip of coffee. "She made me question my worth, not just professionally, personally. Took the work I built, the ideas I pitched, the late nights I logged, and erased me from the narrative, like I was furniture." I understood that too well. Later that night, I plugged in the drive. What I found wasn't just unethical, it was damning. Jessica had rerouted client communications to her private email. She'd set up shadow folders to control what executives saw. One file had clear timestamps of her changing ownership tags, from team leads to her name before board reviews. It was corporate fraud. Elegant, discreet, but undeniable. My chest tightened. I wasn't just holding leverage. I was holding a career-ending weapon. And still, a part of me hesitated. Not because I felt guilty, but because I knew what would happen when this went public. Jessica would fall hard, my parents would break, and no one could claim ignorance anymore. I wasn't sure if I was ready to be the one who forced them all to see the truth. Rachel came over that weekend. She found me on the floor, surrounded by papers, files, post-it notes, mapping out every thread. "You look like a beautiful mind meets emotionally neglected daughter," she said, gently nudging a coffee cup my way. "Accurate. You okay?" I stared at a photo of Jessica at a charity gala, smiling as if the world bent to her will. "I don't know. I think I'm grieving something that never existed." Rachel sat down. "Like what?" "A sister, a safe space, a family that didn't gaslight me into thinking I was dramatic for feeling things." "You're not just feeling," she said. "You're remembering. And it hurts." I nodded. "But I'm not just doing this for revenge." "Then why?" "Because if I don't, she'll do it to someone else, and no one will ever call her out. I need to be the one who says, 'You don't get to rewrite reality and get away with it.'" Rachel smiled. "That's not revenge, Claire. That's justice." The promotion ceremony was a week away. I mailed the envelope 2 days before. No return address, just cold, crisp facts and digital evidence. I sent it directly to Jessica's regional VP, and then I waited. Ever feel like telling the truth would ruin everything, but keeping quiet might ruin you? The morning of the ceremony, the air carried that manufactured calm, like the hush right before a curtain rises. Everyone, it seemed, was preparing for Jessica's moment. But I knew something she didn't. I knew this wouldn't be a promotion. It would be a reckoning. I woke up early that day, not out of nerves, but clarity. There's a specific calm that comes from knowing you've done everything right, that your hands are clean, even when the outcome will be messy. By 9 a.m., I was sitting at a local cafe, not far from Jessica's corporate headquarters. It was a glass and steel skyscraper, modern and heartless. Fitting. I watched people flow in, lanyards swaying, clutching coffees like shields. I imagined Jessica among them, heels clicking, smile painted, power suit tailored to perfection. The world would be watching her today, but someone else would be watching more closely. Her boss. I didn't expect to hear from him directly, but I got confirmation in a more poetic form. An email came through on my burner inbox at 9:47 a.m. Just one sentence. We're aware. Action is being taken. That was it. No signature, no name. Just like that, the waiting stopped. Now it was time to witness. I wasn't invited to the ceremony, of course, but Ethan was. He slipped me a guest pass that morning. I always bring a +1. Corporate's too polite to question anything with a suit and a smile, he'd said. So I wore both. A suit and a smile. The event was held in a high-rise atrium, polished marble floors, hanging pendant lights, seating arranged like a TED Talk. There was a banner that read, "Celebrating Leadership, the Future of Innovation." Jessica stood on stage, talking to a senior exec. Her laugh was rehearsed. Her poise, choreographed. She didn't notice me at first, seated quietly in the third row. But when she did, the flicker in her eyes was lightning fast. Like thunder hadn't hit yet, but she could smell the storm. She walked over during the pre-show mingling. "Claire?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Supporting family," I said smoothly, sipping champagne. Her nostrils flared. "I didn't put you on the list." "I know, Ethan did." Her gaze snapped to the corner, where Ethan pretended not to see us. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. "This isn't a game." "No," I said. "This is chess, and you forgot the pawns matter." She looked like she wanted to say more, but her name was called. The speech started smoothly. Jessica had always been a good speaker, articulate, poised, performative in the best way. She talked about growth, about vision, about values. But midway through her thank yous, the company's VP stepped up. "Before we continue," he said, taking the mic, "I need to address something. We've recently been made aware of several discrepancies regarding leadership attribution and ethical practices related to Ms. Thompson's past campaigns." Jessica froze. The air shifted. The crowd murmured. "Due to the seriousness of the claims and pending internal review, we will be suspending the promotion process until further notice." It wasn't loud. It wasn't scandalous. It was worse. It was corporate shame, quiet, cold, calculated. Jessica didn't say a word. Not to the VP, not to the crowd, not to me. She stepped off the stage and walked out of the room like a ghost had just whispered her obituary. Later in the hallway, I found her standing near a window, staring out at the skyline like she could reverse time by sheer will. She turned when she heard my footsteps. "You did this," she said. I didn't deny it. "You were never meant to be part of this world," she hissed. "No," I said. "I was never meant to survive in your version of it." There was silence between us then. So sharp, so loud, it filled the space more than words ever could. She walked away first, but this time I didn't follow. That night, Mom called. Her voice trembled. "Something happened at Jessica's event. We don't understand. She won't talk." I didn't lie. "I know." "You know?" she repeated. Claire, did you have anything to do with this?" I paused. And then, "I told the truth." She didn't respond right away. "Sometimes truth feels like betrayal," she said. "Only if you've been protecting the lie," I replied. She hung up. And for once I didn't feel guilty. Ever notice how silence feels different when it's your turn to hold the mic? Jessica didn't speak to anyone for 3 days. Not Mom. Not Dad. Certainly not me. The golden child had finally cracked, and instead of exploding, she did what high-functioning narcissists do best. Vanished, hoping that absence would be mistaken for dignity. It was a Tuesday evening when the call finally came. I was folding laundry when my phone lit up with Dad's name. She's not doing well, he said without preamble. She's humiliated, angry. She won't say it, but your mother's worried. I said nothing. Claire? I don't know what happened, but if you had anything to do with this, you need to think about what it's doing to this family. That word again. Family. Always weaponized, never reflective. I pressed the phone to my ear and asked, when she blackballed me from her event, was that thinking about family? He sighed. She was under pressure. No, I said. She was comfortable, and comfortable people don't change unless they're forced to. There was a beat of silence before he replied, maybe you're right, but sometimes it's not about who's right. And there it was. The confession. The subtle acknowledgement that even when I told the truth, they'd still prefer the illusion if it kept the peace. I didn't expect them to side with me. I wasn't naive. But I did expect a sliver of accountability. Instead, I became the villain for shattering their shrine. 3 days later, Jessica showed up at my door. No call, no warning, just her. Still polished, but faded around the edges. Her blazer wasn't crisp. Her mascara was smudged. Just a little. If I didn't know better, I'd think she looked human. Can we talk? She asked. I stepped aside. She didn't sit. She hovered. I lost the promotion, she said. I know. She stared at me. Did you send the report? Yes. Silence. Then, I didn't think you had it in you. That's the problem, I said. None of you ever did. Her eyes narrowed. Do you feel powerful now? Like you've won? No, I said honestly. This isn't about winning. This is about surviving. Jessica folded her arms. You've always envied me. I laughed, sharp, short. I never wanted your life, Jessica. I wanted a voice, a presence. You just happened to be the one silencing it. She looked away, jaw tight. I made mistakes, she said finally. But this, you went nuclear. I leaned forward. You used people. You buried them under your ambition. You hurt people. And when I called it out, you called it betrayal. But it wasn't. It was a mirror. Jessica didn't respond. Not immediately. When she finally looked back at me, there was something unreadable in her eyes. Shame, maybe. Or something dangerously close to clarity. She left without another word. That night, I sat on my porch, a blanket wrapped around me, and wondered if I'd started a war that didn't need to happen, or if the war had always been there, and I just stopped pretending it wasn't. Rachel texted, "You okay?" I stared at the screen, then typed, "She came. She cracked." A pause. "And you?" Still standing. It was Sunday again. Family dinner. Not the celebratory kind. Not the curated, "we're fine" kind. This was the kind of meal where the food turned to sand in your mouth and every silence was loud. Jessica had said nothing since showing up at my place. Dad had stopped calling. Mom, though, she texted that morning. "Can you come for dinner tonight? Just come." I showed up 5 minutes late on purpose, not to be rude, but to avoid being the first target. Old habit. Jessica was already at the table. No makeup, hair tied back, wearing a plain black sweater that swallowed her confidence. She looked smaller, like grief had cinched her in from the inside. Mom served casserole with her usual cheerleader smile, the one that showed up when everything else was falling apart. "So good to have both my girls home," she said, as if the past 2 weeks hadn't detonated the entire family dynamic. I poured myself a glass of wine and waited. The first 30 minutes were civil. Hollow small talk, work, weather, the neighbor's new dog. Then Mom dropped her fork. It clattered. Jessica flinched. "I can't do this," Mom said, her voice trembling. "I can't sit here and pretend we're okay." Dad didn't look up. He kept chewing like nothing happened. "Claire," she said, "your sister. She's been through enough." I swallowed, slowly. "So have I." "You didn't lose your career." "No," I said. "I lost my family's respect years ago. This just made it obvious." Jessica stared at her plate. "I didn't ask them to take sides." "You didn't have to," I snapped. You were always the side. The room froze. Dad stood up to get more wine. Classic deflection. I'd spent years watching him leave conversations when they became too sharp. But this time, Mom didn't let it go. She was your baby sister, she said to Jessica, voice rising. You were supposed to protect her, not erase her. Jessica blinked. You always expected me to be perfect. And we expected Claire to be invisible, Mom whispered. God, what have we done? The words hung in the air like smoke. I looked at Jessica. Her eyes were glassy but defiant. I didn't mean to erase you, she said. But I did. And it was easier than admitting I needed you. Something cracked in me. Anger or heartbreak, I couldn't tell. I stood. I don't need an apology. I needed a witness. Someone to say, yes, this happened to you. Jessica didn't argue. Mom looked down. I let her hurt you. I saw it. I just didn't want to believe the girl I raised could be cruel. Twist the knife, then pull it out, then hand it to them. That's what truth does. We didn't finish dinner. Jessica left first. She didn't say goodbye. Dad said he had work. Mom lingered in the doorway with me. She wasn't always like this, you know, she said. When you were little, she used to braid your hair, tuck you in. I think she loved you before she learned to fear being second. That was the root, wasn't it? Jessica didn't hate me. She feared me. Because I saw her. The parts she didn't want the world to notice. The doubt. The manipulation. The need to win, even when there was nothing left to gain. That night, I sat alone in my apartment and reread the journal I kept in my teens. Page after page of small slights that, together, built a lifetime of silence. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was looking for something more dangerous. Peace. And that's what I found. Not from forgiveness, not from reconciliation, from release. Ever realize the peace you craved didn't come from fixing the past, but letting it burn behind you? Some endings don't arrive like a storm. They arrive in stillness, quiet as breath, soft as surrender. They show up not with a bang, but with a question. Now what? A month had passed since the dinner, since Jessica came to my door, since the bomb dropped in that glittering marble atrium. Life moved on, because it always does. But I didn't go back to who I was before, because I couldn't. I moved out of my apartment, found a place in a quieter part of town. Nothing extravagant, just enough light, enough silence, enough space to remember who I was before I learned to shrink. Rachel helped me paint the walls a muted sage green. This is a therapy color, she said, laughing, barefoot, a paint roller in hand. Restful, like your trauma is finally on vacation. We shared Chinese takeout on the floor that night, surrounded by unopened boxes and the warmth of earned peace. You don't owe them anything, Rachel said, wiping soy sauce off her fingers. I know. And you don't have to fix her, or your mom, or make your dad care. I know that too. But you still wish it could have been different. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, yeah, I do. Some people will always choose comfort over truth, but others will wake up one morning and realize silence is heavier than conflict. Mom called 2 weeks later. Not for Jessica, for herself. I've started therapy, she said, her voice cautious, like she wasn't sure how to handle the word in her mouth. I want to understand what I let happen, to you, to both of you. It wasn't everything, but it was more than I thought I'd ever hear from her. We talked for over an hour, not about solutions, about memories. How did I miss so much? She asked. Because you didn't want to see it. And now, you do. Jessica didn't call, not for months. She went dark on social media, quiet, uncharacteristically invisible. But one day, a letter arrived, handwritten, no return address. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Claire, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I remember the way you used to look at me when we were kids, like I was your whole world. And I've thought a lot about when that changed. Maybe it was when I decided being loved wasn't enough. I needed to be worshipped. I'm sorry for every time I took your silence as weakness. You didn't destroy me. You just stopped protecting me from myself. J. I folded the letter slowly, held it like something sacred and fragile, and I didn't cry. I just breathed. 6 months later, I stood on a small stage in a nonprofit event space. I was launching a campaign I'd designed from scratch, a mentorship initiative for first-gen college women in corporate spaces. The irony didn't escape me. Sometimes your pain becomes your purpose, not out of some savior complex, but because it teaches you how to protect others in the ways you never were. I looked out at the crowd, young women, hopeful eyes, bright minds, and I spoke the words I wish someone had told me a decade ago. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room, but don't let anyone convince you that you don't belong in it. They clapped. But more than that, they listened. Really listened. After the event, a woman came up to me. She looked familiar. It took me a second to realize it was Marisa, the woman Jessica had stolen credit from on that campaign. "I've been following what you're doing," she said. "This matters." "Thanks," I said, smiling. "I've learned from the best and the worst." She didn't pry, just nodded. And in that, there was solidarity. Sometimes redemption doesn't come with a clean slate. It comes with scars, letters, messy apologies and awkward conversations, and long nights of wondering if you'll ever stop flinching when the phone rings. But it also comes with space. Space to grow. Space to choose. And that's what I did. I chose not to carry Jessica anymore. Not her ambition, not her shadow, not her shame. I didn't hate her. I didn't idolize her. I released her, so I could finally hold myself. Looking back, I've learned that silence isn't always strength. It can also be survival. But healing? That begins the moment you decide to speak, even if your voice shakes. We grow not when life is easy, but when we finally choose ourselves over the roles others wrote for us. I stopped asking for permission to exist, and maybe that's what growing up really means. Have you ever had to walk away from family just to find yourself? What would you have done in my shoes? If this story touched your heart or made you reflect, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, or tell me what you'd do differently. And hey, if you're still here, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Your voice matters too.